Hi loves, this is Shannon Easterly, licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, and today we are going to revisit attachment styles in adulthood. We have previously talked about secure attachment. There is secure attachment and insecure attachment. Insecure attachment has three different flavors to it, three different kinds that we can kind of fall into a category. About 50% of us have what's called secure attachment. That means that as we were growing up, our needs were met in a way that was good enough. When we needed closeness, when we needed care, when we had emotions, our caregivers were there and available to us consistently enough that we grew up believing the world and relationships in it were safe to be in. If there was an interruption in that process of some kind, then we may have developed a less secure form of attachment. And there are three different kinds of insecure attachment that we recognize. The first, and these are the childhood terms for them, and I'll fill in the adulthood terms as we go. There's anxious, there's avoidant, and there's disorganized. We all have a primary attachment style that we work from. That attachment style can change over time. It can change depending on the relationship that we're in. But we start out with one that is our kind of jumping off point. So 50% of us jump off from the place at 50 to 60% from the place of secure attachment, where relationships are mostly safe. And then if we move into relationships as life goes on that continue to show us that relationships are safe, our secure attachment style kind of transcends and follows us throughout our lifetime. We can start out with some secure attachment and then move into a relationship where we have a partner who has some insecure attachment traits, and we can get kind of wobbly. And if we start out with insecure attachment traits and we connect with a partner who is more secure, we can actually heal. So it's kind of like puzzle pieces that get put together, and it just depends on our personalities. As individuals, it depends on the parenting and caregiving that we receive when we are itty bitty, and it depends on the experiences that we have moving forward from there. So today we are going to talk about anxious attachment. That's what it's called in childhood. When we move into adulthood, it is actually called preoccupied. I love writing with chalk. Chalk just makes me happy. It makes me feel like I'm a teacher and like I'm a kid again. So preoccupied attachment. How does anxious attachment come about in childhood? Preoccupied come about in adult relationships. Anxious attachment tends to occur when there has been intermittent reinforcement in caregiving. So sometimes that caregiver is really available and really there for a nurture, and then other times they're not available at all. And sometimes that is because the caregiver is unskilled. Sometimes it's because there are just things that happen in life that mean our caregivers are taken away from us for a period of time. But the child learns how good and wonderful that nurture and that connection feels. And then when it goes away, they are bereft. And so there's this anxiousness about when can I get back to that good feeling again? And it really begins to create not so much a desire for connection, but a fear around losing that connection. And so you see children who are very clingy to caregivers because they're afraid, if I let you go in this moment, I don't know when you're coming back around. We can sometimes see more anxious attachment happening when there is maybe addiction present. So mom or dad are really attuned to needs when they're sober. They're not so attuned to needs when they're high or drinking. Sometimes it is when a parent works a lot. Mom or dad are really, really attuned when they're home, but then they're gone for really long periods of time. And again, no parenting is perfect, and we're not looking for you have to be present for your child every moment of every day and meet every need. I'm sure that would create its own dysfunction of some kind. We're looking for good enough. We're looking for a high percentage of times that that child has a need or emotion, and that need or emotion is attuned to. So what does this look like then in adulthood? If we grow up with a more anxious attachment style, then in adulthood we are going to be preoccupied with a partner, and that is brutal. I would much rather be in the avoidance category. So what you see in a partner who has more of an anxious attachment style, for them personally, they're going to have maybe lower self-esteem. They're going to hold their partner in higher self-esteem than they hold themselves. And so therefore their sense of worth and safety is going to be dependent on the attention they get from their partner. Because of that, the experience of the partner is often that the person with the anxious attachment style is continually asking for more and more reassurance, and the bar just keeps going up. If you really loved me, I would know it this way. If you really loved me, thanks for doing that, but really what I need is this. And so the experience of a partner on the other side of that is, I can't get it right. I can't do enough. And so a lot of frustration can build up. That partner begins to move away, which then makes the anxious partner more anxious. And it's just messy. It is not pretty. So if we tend toward an anxious attachment style, how do we heal from that? I'm going to talk about how we heal from it as individuals, how we can help a partner if we are in relationship with someone who has anxious attachment. As an individual, we heal from it by, first of all, investing in self. And some of that is probably going to be work with a therapist. For every moment that we are anxious about the attachment in a relationship being threatened, we, I know as cheesy as it sounds, we have an inner child who is crying out, hey, I need to make sure that I'm safe and that I'm going to be consistently loved. And we have to make sure that we are connecting with that ourselves so that we're not putting so much pressure on our partner to do that work for us. Investing in ourselves in terms of having our own interests and our own activities and not letting those go by the wayside as we're investing in a partner. People who are anxiously attached are notorious for giving up self to invest in the partner rather than staying connected in self. We heal that by working on self-regulation and self-soothing. So mindfulness practices, learning how to respond rather than react. Oftentimes what happens when a partner is anxious is when that anxiousness gets activated, they will act out rather than talking about what they're feeling. So you'll see fits of rage or fits of anger or fits of high emotion that then garners the reassurance oftentimes from the partner, but it comes at a heavy cost for the relationship. So learning how to self-soothe and regulate those emotions so that there's not that acting out piece. If your partner leans toward the anxious side, the things that you can do to help that partner is to make sure that you are providing for them ongoing reassurance of how you feel about them and how much they mean to you. That you are very consistent in your attention, that it's not, for a week I water this plant and then for 2 weeks I forget that it's there. And then for a week I water the plant and then for 2 weeks I forget that it's there. Being very, very consistent about, I make sure that these are the things routinely, our brains seek routine, especially if we run toward the anxious side, they seek routine. I routinely let my partner know that I am there and available in this particular way. And then just really, really making sure that you let your partner know when you're not going to be available so that they are not triggered by that sense of abandonment because they've already been told, hey, it's not that I'm being avoidant, it's that I am just simply not going to be available during this space and time, so that they, again, are not triggered into this place of being anxious or preoccupied. So what does an overcorrection look like? If you are the individual who runs toward anxious, and overcorrection could look like becoming so adept at self-soothing, becoming so accustomed to meeting your own needs for reassurance that you no longer ask for it in the relationship, and that you begin to believe that it's not okay for you to have needs, that if you were stronger in some way, you wouldn't. We are all wired with attachment needs. We all have that need for connection. Now, how we are raised and our experiences and our individual personalities can shift that over time. There are some people who, as it turns out, truly do not have connection needs. But an overcorrection on the part of an anxiously attached partner would be moving into that space of, oh, I am so strong on my own now that I don't have attachment needs. And you can even become almost avoidant if you are paired with a partner who is avoidant and you have been in that kind of preoccupied way, asking for reassurance, asking for that connection, and you have a partner who is consistently responding with, that's not important to me, or that's just not something I can do, or over time, you can almost move into this avoidant place because it's so painful to be presenting those needs and having them shut down. And we'll talk more about how we end up in avoidant places in the next video. And overcorrection on the partner's part of if you are partnered with someone who has anxious attachment, is beginning to shut down your life to try to do the work for your anxiously attached partner. So in other words, you, my anxiously attached partner, are, spinning out if I stop at the grocery store on the way home, so I will stop stopping at the grocery store on the way home. Or I will stop spending time with friends, or I will stop investing in my life in these ways because it makes you anxious and then it makes me miserable. And that is an overcorrection on the partner's part. And that is where, as a partner, you want to be both responsive and have boundaries. To be able to say, I see that this creates anxiety for you. Help me understand how I can make it feel safer for you while not giving up those parts of me that make me me. So that is a brief overview of anxious or preoccupied attachment. I hope that there has been something helpful for you in the information there. This is there's such beauty in this model and so much depth in it. It would be impossible to cover a fraction of it without speaking for hours. So I'm did you get that? Oh, I forgot I had something sitting right there. That could have gone sideways, literally. So I hope this is enough to give you just kind of an overview of anxious attachment. And next time we'll talk about avoidant, and then we will bring it home with disorganized. So secure attachment is secure or autonomous attachment. If we look at that through the lens of Bowen theory, that is going to be when we are differentiated, when we have a sense of self. And if you are Buddhist, or if you are a universalist, I don't know, that word self in Bowen theory does not mean the same thing as ego. So I'm not saying if we have an ego, we are able to be autonomous and secure. I'm actually saying the opposite of that. As we move out of ego, we become a self. So it's easy to get confused in that because those words are not used synonymously. So just know that self in Bowen theory does not mean you're in your ego. You're in your ego when you're either enmeshed or moving to the opposite of that, just cut off. That's when you're acting from an ego state rather than acting from a place of contentment and the ability to be present without holding on too tightly. I'm gonna stop now. I hope this has been helpful. Take care.